Hello everyone, this is Jotto, and welcome to the Hearthstone Weekly Show, episode 59. Now, for this week, we're going to be going over the Plague Quarter, its constructed applications, and a little bit of my opinion on sort of what happened this week, and the heroics. Now, before we start, I would just like to thank everyone for all the feedback I've gotten Versus Series. It's been pretty much 100% positive. Fixed all of the issues I had from last week. I'm going to keep improving the show, and we've got some big stuff coming up in the future for that particular show, so stay tuned. But without further ado, let's get started, shall we? So, first things first, the heroics themselves. Now, the heroics for this week were a big improvement over last week. Last week was not exactly the most interesting thing you could ever do. Let's be honest here. This week's heroics, we had three fairly decent ones. We had Noth, minus the puns that Kel'Thuzad uses. Noth, with his 5/5 passive hero power, was quite challenging. I know that a lot of people sort of accidentally beat him on the first try. I did hear about this, and I kind of know why. It's because sometimes you just get draws that beat him, that have like really fast starts with Innervate and things like that. In my case, I did it with a Divine Spirit Inner Fire deck that was pretty basic from Priest. Then there was Hagen. Is it Hagen the Unclean? Hagen the Unclean was a joke. I'm going to be completely honest. It was absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. You just play Shaman and you win. I'm sorry, that's like everything to the fight. The only difference between normal mode and heroic is the Void Caller that he starts with. That is it. The hero power damage increase is pretty much irrelevant, because you're going to be using eggs and creepers against them. So the eggs still take 1 shot and then 2 to kill the Nerubian, and the creepers still take 3 hits to kill. So it's not even relevant. It's really stupid. I was really disappointed with Hagen because the other two heroics were quite high standard. Hagen was just not. He was just not difficult. I mean, compared to the other two, it was just an absolute joke, and I was really disappointed. I didn't really notice the difference between heroic and normal at all. You just have to deal with the Void Caller with like a Hex or an Earthshock, and you just win. So that was a bit disappointing. The last one, however, Loetheb, was incredibly difficult, just absolutely insane. I ended up winning with like a Priest Zoo deck, but I know some people did it with Rogue, and some people did it with Hunter, but it was very difficult compared to the rest of the heroics we've seen so far out of like the other 5 that we've seen. It was very difficult. It was the one that took the most time for a lot of people, and it was extremely difficult. The only complaint I have about that fight is that it's difficult, but it kills you off on turn 4 a lot, so you don't really get the chance to learn the fight that well. I did the heroics more or less solo. I got a little bit of input from my teammates since we all focused on different heroics first. Birdie was the first one on the team to actually finish all of them, but Fire finished, I think it was North, and then I finished Hagen, and then Loetheb was finished by Birdie first. So like, we all focused on different things. So I got a bit of input from there, but I didn't go on Hearthbone. And the Priest Zoo deck I was running, the major difference I discovered was actually an input from Birdie, which was if you got Lightwell, you basically won. If you didn't get Lightwell, you didn't. But you die so quickly, you don't figure that out. There's multiple stages to that fight, and you just don't figure it out. There's things like Poison Seeds, there's things like the fact he doesn't play Spores continuously, and you can actually just lose to those. So, yeah, the Loetheb heroic was correct on difficulty, and it's definitely one of the best heroics they've done so far. Very correct on difficulty. I just think they probably could have designed the fight so he kills you like on turn 6 or 7, so you actually have a little bit longer to learn the fight. But besides that, I quite liked his fight in general. Now, onto the big sort of thing in the room, which is the way they released the wing this week. Come on, Blizzard, you knew this was gonna happen. Let's be honest here. As soon as you release an expansion, or sorry, adventure, it's a mini expansion, let's be honest here. If you release it in 5 different wings over 5 different weeks, there's gonna be problems. I mean, come on. First of all, they did a midnight release everywhere for some reason. Last week they released it all at the same time and no one complained. Like, why did they change it for this week? They released it midnight everywhere, so that got a bunch of complaints from people. Partly because Asia got it like 20 hours before everyone, or not 20, it was like, I think they got it like 6 hours before EU, and then EU got it 9 hours before NA. Yeah, Asia got it 15 hours before NA and 6 hours before you. It was absurd. Like, I actually did the normal modes, and then I was debating going to bed and waking up in the morning, and I would have still done it before any of the NA people could have. That's just ridiculous. That's a huge time gap. Like, I don't know why they did it that way. That was the first problem. I mean, to be honest, I know they're just trying to do midnight releases everywhere, and yeah, that's kind of cool. But that was the least of the problems. That was the absolute least. That's just a personal gripe for me. It's like, why even do it that way? It worked perfectly fine last week. But then it got worse. The shop broke completely. It's still broken. Like, I got in fairly quickly because I kind of glitched it into working, where I logged out exactly when it was authenticating, so it just kind of bought it. But if you didn't get in the first 5 minutes and you didn't like pull some random trick like I did, you just didn't get in. I know the NA shop was down for about 30 hours, and it's still kind of glitchy, where some people are just stuck in the transaction process. It still happens on EU as well. The entire EU shop for gold, even for buying packs, went down for about 20 hours. A couple hours after the wing came out, it was atrocious. It's still causing problems. Some people still do not have access to the wing 3 days before the next wing comes out. Really? You would have fixed this by now. This is pretty terrible, to be honest, the way they're releasing this. I mean, alright, correction. The way they're releasing it is not that bad. I just think the order they're releasing the cards in is kind of sketchy. But it means that we have to go through technical issues every week for a month. What? Why would you subject your player base to that? Like, they basically killed their entire hype train. Because everyone is just getting really, really irritated with Blizzard at the moment because they want to play their new card. They want to throw money at you and you won't let them. Like, that's literally what's happening at the moment. You couldn't even get in with money. You had to pre-purchase it, so you don't have to buy it through the shop at all. It's just unlocked. They should just allow people to pre-purchase with gold. That's an easy fix. But for some reason they want to do this whole wing by wing system, and it's just causing issues. So that's my, like, sort of waving the finger at Blizzard part for the episode, because the rest of this is going to be more or less positive. Just to let you guys know, I know I'm sort of the king of rants, but the rest of this is going to be more or less positive. But that's just the major problem I have with this week. And last week they had server issues, but this week was just ridiculous. It made last week look like a just 2 to 3 minute downtime. It was ridiculous. And other problem they had this week, when they reset the ladder, they have never done this before, and it really irritated me. They reset the ladder, and instead of kicking everyone out when they'd finished their game, they just kicked everyone out at the same time. I know several people who lost top 100 legend because of that, and they were really annoyed. Like, you can't blame them. Like, seriously, you can't blame them. Like, I know a couple of people who were just 1 or 2 ranks away from top 100 legend, or in top 100, and because it counted as a loss for everyone, they just got kicked out. What? Why would you do that? No, really, why would you do that? That doesn't make any sense. They just cut down the server, and then they patched it, and then when you tried to get back on the server for a while, it just didn't let you on. You, like, got on, it gave you your stars, and kicked you off the server. They made a lot of mistakes this week as far as servers goes. I'm just saying, they made a lot of mistakes. I tried to go for top 100. I came pretty close. I got to like 200, and I think I got a bit higher than 200. I think I got to 110 at one point, and I lost the game. Yeah, I got pretty high, and I actually would have got it if I had like an hour extra or something. They also brought back the time, but I was having issues with server problems because the login servers for most of Europe were shot for most of the day. So you kept getting kicked out after games. It was terrible. So the actual server, this is the problem. Like, the cards that I'm going to go over this week are very, very positive. The rest of the stuff is pretty negative. I don't like doing negative things as much as you guys probably disagree with that. I don't like doing negative things, but I'm going to point out when they screw up. And this week they pretty much screwed up. But anyway, on to the only bad card from this week, Stoneskin Gargoyle. It's like the bridge. It's the bridge in between. Stoneskin Gargoyle is terrible. Don't even go near it. No one's gone near it. It's a worse Silverback Patriarch. I thought I'd say that. It's a worse Silverback Patriarch. Just stay away from it. That's all I'm going to say about this card. It was fun in the class challenge, but that is literally it. Now, from here, we are going to be moving on to the Unstable Ghoul. Now, this is an interesting 2-drop. When we did the set review, I was like, well, I don't really know where this goes. It might go in some decks, and I was right. I still don't know where this goes. It might go in some decks. No, I'm serious. People haven't figured it out yet. Someone's going to figure out an Unstable Ghoul deck at some point. It might be me, because I love tinkering around with things, but it's just kind of... It's such a hard card to evaluate. It's kind of like Wild Pyromancer. Someone will figure out a home for it. Wild Pyro is an incredibly powerful card, though, and it's much, much, much more powerful than Unstable Ghoul in terms of actual how far you can push the card. So, I mean, someone's going to find a place for it. It might be in Warrior. It could be in some anti-aggro deck. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I think the card is still quite powerful, and we'll have to see where it goes. But no one's really come up with anything for it yet. Now, we're going to move on to the last of the 3 neutrals. So yeah, 2 of them not so exciting. Sludge Belcher. I said it was my least favorite card in the set, design-wise. It is still my least favorite card in the set, design-wise. I think the actual card is quite useful. I've been running it as a one-off in my Druid deck, which I will put in the description, and if you guys could go ahead and put what you think about the deck and thumbs it up on there, it actually does help me out a lot. Because getting decks going on Hearthstone is quite tricky. So if you guys want to go have a look at that, I'll put it in the description. And that's the deck I got. Well, I got Legend this season with a variation of it before this wing, and I almost got top 100 with it. So it's a fairly sound deck at the moment. It's very, very good against Zoo. It's about 75% against Zoo. It's very, very good against Zoo. Its only bad matchup is Miracle, and I think Spectral Knight is gonna kill Miracle a little bit. Loetheb didn't, but Spectral Knight is gonna hush it down a little bit. Now, as for Sludge Belcher, he's been pretty good against aggro, pretty bad against Silence, but if they silence him, they don't silence the rest of your taunts. The way I see it is that in Druid taunt decks, he's a 3rd Druid of the Claw that's less versatile, and in other decks, they don't really want to run Sunwalker. He's too slow, even though Sunwalker is a more powerful card. They don't really want to run Sunwalker as their anti-aggro, because as I said, he's too slow. They want to run other 6-drops like Karen and Black Knight, so Sludge Belcher fits in the curve nicely. That is where he goes. I think he's a very, very decent taunt. He's a bit like the Senjin of 5 mana. He's not as good as Senjin is for 4 as he is for 5, but he's pretty close. I think he's decent. I still think he's the worst design card in the game, however, and I'm just going to bring up the slime art. What is that? It is the worst art in the game. Actually, there's probably a piece that's worse, but it's pretty close. Like, as I said, the card is pretty good, but the design is terrible. And the slime looks really ugly compared to all the other cards in Nax, which have like really, really good art. And then there's the slime token. I was like, even the Spectral Spiders have amazing art. Like, it's not just a token thing. The Spectral Spiders have really good art. Just the freaking slime. But anyway, Belcher was definitely the best out of the 3 non-legendary neutrals for this week. Although I think Unstable Ghoul might show his face later on. On to the best card we got this week, Loetheb. Now, I put him as the best card in the set. I still think he's the best card in the set. I mean, alright, Dark Cultist might technically be stronger, but Dark Cultist is only in one class. So, Loetheb is definitely going to be the one that impacts the metagame the most. So far, I've seen him in every single deck. And he has won and lost me several games in a row. I actually have lost games where I'm like, alright, so I can wipe his board, and they play Loetheb and I lose. And I actually have done this to a lot of token druids, where they play Violet Teacher, and I innervated Loetheb, and they skip their next turn because they can't do anything. Because if they coin Teacher, then they don't have any follow-up that isn't spells. That's the whole point of coining Teacher. So you just innervate Loetheb, and you just win, because you kill their Teacher for free. They have to skip their turn 4, and then you play a 4-drop, and you're so far ahead at that point, you just won the game. It's pretty insane. Like, a 5-mana 5/5 is actually really, really good, and against Zoo, they're playing Power Overwhelmings at the moment, and Soulfires. So do not underestimate this against Zoo. It actually does do something. Especially now where you can notice that people are holding cards in their hand for a long, long time. If it's a Doomguard, they'll attack the Loetheb, and the Doomguard's then easy to kill. And because it only has 2 life left, and you essentially 2 for 3, unless he doesn't discard anything. But then you can still deal with the Doomguard fairly easily if he runs it into a Loetheb. And he can't Soulfire at all, basically on that turn. He can, but then he wastes his entire turn. He can't tap with it. And you can't Power Overwhelming basically at all, and it really does slow him down. It slows everyone down. Its least effect, it affects Zoo the least, but it still affects it. I think Taunt Druid is also very good against it because they just play creature, 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 but it's still affected. Miracle actually plays Loatheb because you can Loatheb block people. There is actually I have actually had this happen to me where someone plays Loatheb, blocks you out of spells, attacks, Shadow Steps Loatheb, replays him, blocks you out of spells, attacks. Basically, the Shadow Steps do 5 damage each, but they also lock you out of any kind of removal, which is just insane. So it's over multiple turns, but you keep the rest of your board alive, so you just kill him. It's a little absurd, and I do think that Loatheb's a little too good right now. He's been just ridiculous. I don't really... I mean, I did actually watch Value Town, where Reynad and Trump were discussing it and saying it was like Harrison Jones. Spells are vastly more common than weapons, I hate to break it to you guys. Vastly more common. Everyone plays spells. I actually have done this against Paladin, against Shokadin. I played Loatheb on a turn where he was trying to set up Divine Favor and he didn't have any cards for 2 turns, so he just lost. So it is very, very good against pretty much every single deck, and we'll see infinite amounts of play until they nerf it, or the entire metagame becomes Zoo. I'll put it that way. It's just a crazy 5-drop. It's definitely the best 5-drop in the game. Now, onto the 2 class cards. Duplicate. Duplicate is terrible at the moment, and has been... I mean... Alright, correction. Noxious actually has been playing this in his Giants Freeze Mage thing that he almost got Legend with this season. Because you can just copy a Molten Giant and then play 2 for free. But Duplicate is terrible until Wing 4. What happens in Wing 4? Mad Scientist. Now, basically, Mad Scientist Duplicate is ridiculous, and I'm going to be making a deck on that, and I'm going to disappear from the world for like a week making decks with Duplicate and Mad Scientist. The class challenge to get this card was the most fun I have ever had playing Hearthstone. You get to do Mad Scientist into duplicates and vaporizes and mirror entities and just ice blocks and everything. It was absolutely crazy getting 5 secrets on the board with a full board for the entire game. I actually could have killed him about 7 turns before I did. I just wanted to keep playing until I fatigued. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And against Noth, he actually has Mad Scientist Duplicate, and it's pretty dirty. It's ridiculous. It's just draw 2 for 0 mana. It's a little insane. So I actually do think Mad Scientist Duplicate is very, very good, and I will definitely be devoting time to it. Last card for this week, Web Spinnery. Now, Web Spinnery is seeing play in mid-range. Yes, I have been killed by King Crush this week. So Web Spinner is basically just as good as I thought it would be. It'd be played in all the beast decks. It's still not exciting. It's just like it's a 1-mana 1/1 that draws a beast. I mean, yeah, I've been killed by King Crush, but I've also seen Angry Chickens. So, I mean, it's still just a 1-mana 1/1. The class challenge is pretty hilarious, though. 30 Web Spinners. So, yeah, it's pretty nuts. But in Constructed, it's a filler for the mid-range deck. It doesn't really make the mid-range deck that much stronger. It just kind of elevates it a little bit higher, so it's actually playable again. So I do like what it's done for Constructed, but it's a pretty boring card. You just put it in your mid-range decks, and you go to town. And that's about it. Like, that's all you can really say for Web Spinner. Draws a beast, it's good. That's pretty much it. So anyway, for the Poison Quarter, it was definitely much better for Constructed than last week, which was just, it was Egg and Web Spinner, not Web Spinner, Creeper, yeah. Egg and Creeper, which were just ruling everything, and Nerebar Web Spinner is still my favorite card in the set in terms of design, but I don't think it's as good. Mostly because the Death Rattles are so good now, that the Battle Cries are actually pretty bad, so I don't know, I'm not so sure about the Webby anymore, although it has been seeing some play in Token, I've noticed, because it's pretty annoying with the Power of the World on it, and it just stops you from playing Battle Cries. Very, very good against Shaman. So depending on the metagame, it's going to see some play. It's more of a fringe card. But as for the rest of the stuff, next week we do have Military Quarter, which is going to shake up things a lot. We get Death Lord. We don't get Wailing Soul until Wing 4, I think, so that's not going to be a deck for a while. But we get Death Lord, we get Spectral Knight is the big one. Spectral Knight is going to mess a lot of people up. So if you guys want to play Miracle, I would suggest playing it this week, because next week there's a 4/6 that stops you from winning games. So I would actually, if you want to play Miracle, this is going to be the last week where it's going to be super good against the mid-range decks. And then next week it's going to get a massive hit because you have to play against double Spectral Knight and Loetheb, and that's just insane. That's a lot to overcome. You need to start playing your own mid-rangey creatures to beat those, and it's a little sketchy. Miracle players have been playing a lot more mid-rangey creatures recently for Loetheb reasons, but I think next week's going to be pretty hard on Miracle players. Zoo is going up in Wing 4, by the way. If you think Zoo is good at the moment, Zoo in Wing 4 is going to destroy everyone. Zombie Chow and Undertaker coming out in the same wing. Thanks for that, Blizzard. So that's going to be kind of rough. So I'm just going to keep playing my my Taunt Druid deck. As I said, I'll put it in the description. If you guys could go ahead and throw a thumbs up on that, I'd appreciate it a lot. It helps me get a bit more exposure, and yeah, it sort of incentivizes me to keep adding things back into the community. That's the main thing. If you show what you want to actually see, then I'll make it. That's what happened with Versus Series, essentially. But anyway, thank you all for watching. If you like the content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, put it in the comment section below. As for now, this has been Jotto, signing off.